Can you imagine what it would mean for each one of us and the world if we really believed what this said? If we opened our hearts fully to accept the idea that God's kindness is more permanent than the everlasting hills. And it has a guarantee. It says, the covenant of my peace will not be removed. That's the everlasting covenant that was sealed by the blood of Christ. Remember in the book of Hebrews it speaks about the God of peace who brought from the dead that great shepherd of the sheep, our Lord Jesus Christ, establish you, sustain you. So the promise of the love of God is guaranteed by Calvary. And the test of a sensible soul and the real test of a Christian is, are we preoccupied with the passing or with the permanent? We have some things to do with the passing. We've got to do some things to pay expenses. But where is our heart? Where is our mind? What do we do with the excess of energy and love and wealth? What do we do with it? This verse is a challenge and a hope for every one of us. Would you come now to the 55th chapter? We're saying these two chapters are about the right response, the response of Bron, not the response of those people in the church. Here's the gospel invitation that the church is to give. We've looked at this picture of the church that's spreading out, lengthening its cords and strengthening its stakes, believing the promises of God. But now here's the message the church is to give. It's not a message primarily about Armageddon. It's not a message primarily about types of baptism. It's not a message primarily about how the Bible is inspired. All these things may be important, but here's the thing that's most important, the gospel invitation. Come, all you who are thirsty, come to the waters, and you who have no money, come, buy and eat. How do you buy if you've got no money? Come, buy wine and milk without money and without cost. There are only two conditions to get the best out of life. Only two conditions. Do you really want it? Blessed are they that hunger and thirst after righteousness. They will be filled. Nobody else. Cursed are the full. But those that hunger and thirst. So condition number one, you must have a great desire for what only God can give you. Condition number two, you must acknowledge you don't have a penny, you don't have a cent to procure what your heart demands. So you've got to be thirsty and penniless, not things that most people aspire after, but they are the conditions for receiving the gospel. In thousands of churches all over the world, probably most in USA, this invitation is given Sunday by Sunday, and people shake hands with each other and with the pastor and never think about it again because they're comfortable. When people ask the question, is salvation hard or easy? It's not only hard, it's impossible unless you have an overwhelming sense of need. But it's so easy you can stumble into it if you do have a sense of need. And the Bible is telling this message all the way through till you get to the book of Revelation, where it pictures the last church on earth as Laodicea and says, you're lukewarm, you're increased with goods, I'm going to vomit you out of my mouth. You're naked. I counsel you, come buy of me white raiment that you may be clothed, ointment that you may see. Buy of me. Buy of me. But nobody will buy unless they have a tremendous sense of need and they acknowledge that they have nothing to pay for what they want. So they're the conditions in this gospel promise. Then there's a warning. Why do you spend money on for what is not bread? You remember the Jews came to Christ, as recorded in John 6, and they said, what will we do that we might work the works of God? And Jesus replied, this is the work of God, that you believe on him whom Christ has sent. Labour not for the food that perishes. What it really means is don't make it first. Of course you've got to labour for the food that perishes. We've got to live. But it's saying don't make it primary, don't make it preeminent. There's something more important. Labour not for what perishes, but labour for what God will give you. So, why spend money on what's not bread and your labour on what does not satisfy? Listen to me, eat what's good. Your soul will delight in the richest of fare. And the symbols it uses are water, wine, and milk. Water to refresh, wine to gladden, and milk to sustain. In Bible times, there were hundreds of different types of wine, some fermented, some not. They had scores of ways of sealing grape juice, the wine of the poor, not fermented. And the Bible talks about wine in the cluster, destroy it not. So that's certainly not fermented. So here are three symbols: water that refreshes, wine that gladdens, milk. Now, you must understand that in Israel, milk was a luxury, and usually it wasn't cow's milk, it was goat's milk. And in goat's milk, there's practically everything that's needed to sustain life. The only thing it's low in is vitamin C. So here it's using these pictures. Come and receive in the gospel what will refresh you, what will gladden you, and what will sustain you. Nothing else can do it. Nothing else can do it. Reputation can't do it, that can fade. Property can't do it, that can be repossessed. Money can't do it, you can lose it. Strength won't guarantee it because you may have an accident. Only the gospel. Only God is given away. Only heaven can be had for the asking. Never, never forget it. Only God is given away. Everything else is nailed down. Nothing for nothing and very little for sixpence. But the gospel is free, so people despise it. We're all like Naaman. When he's told to wash in the waters of Jordan, he thinks, that dirty little creek. I live where there are great rivers, Abana and Pharpar, wonderful rivers, clean, wholesome, sparkling. Why can't I wash in those? And one of his soldiers says, Master, if the prophet had told you to do a great thing, wouldn't you have done it? How much more when he tells you to do a little thing? So he does it and loses his leprosy. And we have the same problem. The gospel is so simple, we often miss it. It's free. It's free. All you need is a sense of need, and that's for you. Come, give ear and come to me. Hear me that your soul may live. I'll make an everlasting covenant with you, my faithful love promised to David. See, I've made him a witness to the people, a leader and commander of the people. Remember in 2 Samuel 7, God says to David, I will make you a house. David wanted to build a temple for God, but God said, no, you've been a man of blood. My temple has to be a house of peace, a house of prayer for all nations, not a house of blood. But I'll make you a house. Your descendants will never fail to have a throne. And of course, when Christ is born in Luke chapter 1, Mary is told that he would inherit the throne of his father David. Now it's saying the promises God made to David to care for him, to care for his descendants, to bless him, are for us too. They're for us. Verse 5, surely you'll summon nations you know not. Nations that do not know you will hasten to you, because of the Lord your God, the Holy One of Israel.